The war had been going on for 3 long years. 3 years of fighting and dying. 3 years of watching Earth burn under alien attacks. The enemy was called the Krell, and they were strong. Too strong. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the last defense station floating above Earth. Through the window he could see hundreds of Krell warships getting ready for their final attack. They looked like dark clouds blocking out the stars. Next to him, Sophie Blake checked their weapons for the last time. Her face was tired, but her hands were steady. She had been fighting beside Jake since the war started. "We have power for one more shot," Sophie said quietly. "After that, we're done." Jake nodded. He had known this moment would come. The Krell had already taken Mars. They had taken the moon bases. They had taken everything except this one station. Down on Earth, cities were burning. Millions of people were dead or hiding. Behind them, the rest of the crew worked in silence. Everyone knew they were about to die. But no one was running away. They were all ready to fight until the very end. "Captain Morrison," a voice called out. It was Greg Palmer at the communication station. "We're getting a message from Admiral Thrace." Jake looked at Sophie. Admiral Thrace was in charge of what was left of Earth's space fleet. If she was calling now, it meant the end was very close. "Put her on screen," Jake said. The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. Blood was running down the side of her head. Her uniform was burned and torn. Behind her, people were running and screaming. "All units, this is Admiral Thrace," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm ordering everyone to retreat to the moon base. We can't win this fight. We've lost." The words felt like a punch to the stomach. Lost. After 3 years of fighting, after all the people who had died, they had lost. "We'll hold them off while you get the civilians out," Jake said. "Every second counts now." Admiral Thrace looked at him with sad eyes. "Make them remember that humans don't give up easy, Commander. Make them remember us." The screen went black. A moment later, the station shook hard. A massive Krell ship had broken through their defenses. It was firing its weapons at them. "Everyone to battle stations," Jake shouted. "Sophie, target that ship's engines." "Greg, tell me how bad the damage is." The station's last weapons fired. They hit the Krell ship, but it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. The Krell ship kept coming closer. Then Jake saw them. Small pods were shooting out from the Krell ship, heading straight for the station. Boarding pods. The Krell were coming to kill them face to face. "They're boarding us," Sophie said, pulling out her weapon. Jake drew his gun. If this was how it ended, he would make sure the Krell remembered this fight. "Let them come," he said. The pod slammed into the station's hull with loud crashes. Then came the sound of metal being cut open. The Krell were coming through the walls. The bridge doors exploded inward. Krell soldiers poured in. They were big, with 4 arms and tough armor. They had been bred for war. They had conquered 12 worlds before coming to Earth. Jake and his crew opened fire. The first few Krell went down, but more kept coming. There were too many of them. Sophie fought beside Jake, her gun never stopping. Greg was hit in the shoulder but kept fighting. One by one, the crew members fell. But they took Krell soldiers with them. Jake's gun clicked empty. A Krell warrior rushed at him. Jake dodged and smashed the alien in the face with his gun. The Krell stumbled back and Jake grabbed a knife from his belt. The fight was brutal and fast. Jake's training kicked in. He moved without thinking, fighting with everything he had. But there were just too many enemies. A Krell soldier hit him hard in the chest. Jake flew backward and hit the wall. Pain shot through his body. He could taste blood in his mouth. Through blurry eyes, Jake saw Sophie still fighting. She was surrounded but wouldn't give up. Greg was down but still moving. The bridge was full of smoke and bodies. The station shook again. Something big had exploded. The lights flickered and went out. Emergency lights came on, painting everything red. "Jake," Sophie shouted. "The reactor is going to blow. We need to get to the escape pods now." Jake tried to stand up, but his legs wouldn't work right. Sophie ran to him and helped him up. Greg limped over, holding his bleeding shoulder. "The escape pods are 2 levels down," Greg said. "If we run, we might make it." They ran through the burning station. Krell soldiers tried to stop them, but Sophie cleared the way with her last ammunition. They reached the escape pod bay just as the reactor alarm started screaming. "Get in," Sophie yelled, pushing Jake toward the nearest pod. Jake climbed in. Sophie and Greg jumped in after him. The door sealed shut. Greg hit the launch button. The pod shot away from the station just as it exploded behind them. Through the small window, Jake watched the station break apart. Pieces of metal and fire spread out into space. The Krell ship that had attacked them was also damaged, spinning away into the darkness. The pod drifted in the silence of space. Jake, Sophie, and Greg sat in the dark, breathing hard, bleeding, but alive. "What now?" Greg asked quietly. Jake looked out at Earth. Even from space, he could see the fires burning on the surface. The Krell had won. Humanity had lost its war. But deep in Jake's mind, a thought was forming. They hadn't lost everything, not yet. There was still something the Krell didn't know about. Something hidden deep underground. Something called Project Reaper. "Now we wait to be rescued," Jake said. "And then we make the Krell pay for what they've done." 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of the Krell celebrating their victory. They broadcasted everywhere, showing Earth's burning cities and defeated armies. Their leader, Supreme Commander Vecthar, stood before cameras and declared that humanity was finished. But Jake Morrison had been rescued. A human salvage ship had found their escape pod and brought them to an underground base in the mountains. There, he met with what was left of Earth's military leaders. "We have nothing," General Nathan Cross said, his voice heavy with defeat. "No ships, no weapons, no army. It's over." "No," Jake said firmly. "It's not over. We still have one thing the Krell don't know about." Admiral Thrace, her head now bandaged, leaned forward. "What are you talking about?" Jake looked around the room at the tired, defeated faces. Then he smiled. "Project Reaper. And it's time to wake it up." The elevator going down was old and rusty. It made scary noises as it dropped deeper and deeper into the earth. Jake, Sophie, and Greg stood in silence, watching the numbers go down. 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles underground. The facility they were going to had been built in secret during the first year of the war. Nobody was supposed to know about it. The military had spent billions of dollars creating something that might save humanity. Or kill anyone who tried to use it. "I still don't understand what we're looking for," Greg said nervously. "If it's just another weapon, we don't have any bullets left to fire." "It's not a weapon," Jake replied. "It's something better. Something that will change everything." The elevator finally stopped. The doors opened slowly and emergency lights flickered on. They stepped out into a huge underground space. It was as big as an airplane hangar. Sophie walked forward, her mouth open in surprise. In front of them stood rows of black machines. At first they looked like small fighter jets, but as they got closer the truth became clear. These were not ships. These were suits. Combat suits that a person could wear. "These are combat suits," Sophie said, touching the nearest one with her hand. "I thought these were just ideas." "They never finished making them." "They didn't finish them because they were too dangerous," Jake explained. "The suits connect directly to your brain. Most people who tested them went crazy or died. The ones who survived became something more than human." Greg's eyes went wide. "You want us to use these?" "That's crazy." Jake walked to the biggest suit in the middle of the room. It stood 15 feet tall and was painted black with red lines. On its chest was one word written in white letters, "Reaper." "This is our only chance," Jake said. "The Krell think we're beaten. They think we have nothing left. But if we can use these suits, we can hit them where they don't expect it." Sophie found a computer and turned it on. Information appeared on the screen. "These suits make you 50 times faster than normal. They have their own power source that never runs out. The armor can survive direct hits from Krell weapons, and the weapons are controlled by your thoughts. But 7 out of 10 people die when they try to connect with the suit." Greg added, reading the screen. "Jake, this is suicide." "We're already supposed to be dead," Jake said. "Earth is taken. Our fleets are gone. Our cities are burning. But if we can make these suits work, we can fight back. We can become ghosts that hunt the Krell." Sophie closed the computer and turned to look at him. "If you're doing this, then I'm doing it too." Greg took a deep breath. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "I guess someone needs to keep you two alive. I'm in." The process of connecting with the suits took 3 days. 3 days of pain and fear. Thin wires had to be pushed into their spines. Computer programs had to map every part of their brains. It felt like their minds were being torn apart and put back together in a new way. Greg screamed through most of the first day. Sophie stayed quiet, but her face showed the pain she was feeling. Jake felt like his head was going to explode. There were moments when he wanted to give up, to make it stop, but he thought about Earth burning and kept going. On the 3rd day, something changed. The pain stopped. Jake opened his eyes inside the cockpit of the Reaper suit, and everything was different. He could feel the suit like it was his own body. When he thought about moving his arm, the suit's arm moved. When he wanted to see behind him, sensors showed him everything around him. The suit's reactor hummed in its chest and Jake could feel it like a second heartbeat. Systems are working. Sophie's voice came through the radio, clear and strong. She had connected with a suit called Phantom. It was designed for sneaking and hiding. I feel amazing. Like I could run forever. Same here, Greg added. His suit was called Hammer and was built for heavy fighting. Though there's a computer voice in my head telling me weird things about my body. That's the combat computer, Jake explained. It watches your health and helps you make decisions in battle. You'll get used to it. They spent 2 days learning how to use the suits, learning how to walk in them, how to fight, how to work together. The suits made them into living weapons. They could jump over buildings. They could tear through steel walls. They could fire enough weapons to destroy entire city blocks. Finally, Admiral Thrace contacted them with their first mission. She showed them a hologram of a Krell base 50 miles north of where Denver used to be. This is a Krell supply base, Thrace explained. They're using it to support their army on Earth. We think there are about 200 Krell soldiers there, along with big guns and defenses. 200 against 3, Greg said quietly. Sophie smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Sounds fair to me. Jake studied the hologram carefully. The base had high walls, cameras everywhere, and automatic guns. A direct attack would be stupid. Good thing they weren't planning a direct attack. Sophie, you take out their radios so they can't call for help. Greg, you hit their weapon storage and blow it up. I'll go for the command center where their leaders are. And after that? Admiral Thrace asked. Jake's smile was cold and hard. Then we show the Krell what happens when they try to take our world. That night, 3 dark shapes flew toward the Krell base. They moved fast and low to the ground. The Krell guards never saw them coming. Sophie reached the radio tower first. She moved like a ghost, her phantom suit making almost no sound. The Krell guards at the tower didn't even know she was there until it was too late. She destroyed the radio equipment in seconds. At the same time, Greg crashed into the weapon storage building like a meteor. His hammer suit's heavy guns tore through the walls. He fired into the stored ammunition and rockets, then jumped out just before everything exploded. The explosion lit up the night sky like a small sun. The blast was so big that it knocked down nearby buildings. Krell soldiers ran everywhere, shouting and confused. Jake landed on top of the command center. The Krell inside were trying to figure out what was happening. They were looking at screens and yelling at each other. They didn't see Jake crash through the ceiling. The Reaper suit moved faster than the Krell could see. Jake's weapons fired with perfect aim. The suit made every movement smooth and deadly. The Krell commanders tried to fight back, but they had no chance. One Krell officer managed to grab a big gun and fire it at Jake. The blast hit the Reaper suit's shield and bounced off. Jake grabbed the gun and crushed it in his metal hand. Then he threw the officer into a wall. In 10 minutes, the battle was over. 200 Krell soldiers were dead. The supply base was destroyed. And 3 human-shaped shadows disappeared into the night, leaving only fire and smoke behind them. The next morning, Supreme Commander Vecthar watched the video recordings from the base. His 4 eyes stared at the screen as he saw his soldiers being destroyed by 3 unknown enemies. Most of his officers looked scared. But Vecthar smiled slowly. So the humans still want to fight, he said quietly. Good. I was getting bored anyway. Let's hunt these ghosts down. Over the next 2 months, Jake's team hit the Krell 12 more times. Each attack was quick, deadly, and impossible to predict. They destroyed supply trucks, command posts, weapon storage, and radio towers. The Krell started calling them the Ghost Squad because no one could catch them. More people wanted to help. They heard stories about Jake, Sophie, and Greg and wanted to join the fight. More volunteers came forward, willing to risk their lives to connect with the combat suits. Many of them died during the process, but the ones who lived joined the Reaper program. After 3 months, they had 15 working suits. After 6 months, they had 30. Each pilot became a ghost, hunting Krell soldiers in the ruins of Earth cities. Stories spread among the survivors. Hope began to grow again. But Supreme Commander Vecthar was not sitting still. He was angry and determined to destroy the humans who kept attacking his forces. He brought in the best hunters from the Krell Empire. He brought new technology and the deadliest warriors the Krell had. Now the hunters had become the hunted. Jake knew it was only a matter of time before the Krell learned how to fight back. His team had been too successful, too predictable. So when Admiral Thrace called an emergency meeting, he wasn't surprised. We've intercepted Krell communications, Thrace said, her face serious. Vecthar has sent special teams to hunt you down. They're using new sensors that can detect the energy from your suits. Sophie frowned. How long before they find us? They already have, a voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Colonel Lisa Harper walk into the room. She had been leading missions in the outer areas. Her face was dirty and tired, and her eyes looked scared. I barely escaped, Harper said. They ambushed my team 20 miles from here. We lost 6 suits. The Krell have built something new. Big machines designed to kill us. Jake's face went hard. Show us. Harper pulled up a video from her suit's camera. What Jake saw made his blood cold. The Krell machines were huge, twice as big as their suits. They moved fast and carried weapons that could punch holes through their armor. They're calling them predators, Harper said quietly. And they're hunting us one by one. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Krell had adapted. They had built weapons specifically to kill the Reaper suits. The advantage was gone. Jake made his decision quickly. They couldn't hide forever. They couldn't keep running. If the Krell wanted a fight, he would give them one. We attack first, Jake announced. We find Vecthar's hunter teams and we destroy them before they can work together. That's crazy, General Nathan Cross said. You saw what those predators can do. They'll kill you all. Then we get better, Sophie said, stepping forward. We've been fighting like thieves in the night because that's all we could do. But now we have 30 suits. 30 pilots who are more than human. If we hit them together with everything we have, we can win. Greg nodded. She's right. We've been playing defense this whole time. It's time to remind the Krell why they should have left Earth alone. Admiral Thrace looked at each of them. Finally, she nodded. Do it, but be smart. We can't afford to lose you. The ambush was set in the ruins of Salt Lake City. Intelligence reports said a Krell hunter team was searching through the area, looking for human survivors. It was the perfect opportunity. Jake positioned his people carefully. 10 suits on the high ground overlooking the city. 10 more hidden in the ruined buildings below. 10 held back as reserves. When the Krell predators entered the area, they would be surrounded. The Krell came at sunrise. 5 predator machines, each one a towering war machine. They had 50 Krell soldiers with them. They moved with confidence, sure they were the strongest force around. They were wrong. All units. Jake whispered into his radio. Fire. The ruins exploded with gunfire and missiles. 30 Reaper suits opened fire at the same time, catching the Krell completely by surprise. 2 predators went down in the first few seconds, their armor torn apart by focused attacks. But the other 3 predators were fast to react. They spread out and started firing back with deadly accuracy. One of Jake's pilots got hit in the chest and went down. Then another pilot was hit and fell. Close combat, Jake ordered. Get in close so they can't target you easily. The Reaper pilots rushed forward. Sophie's phantom suit moved like a blur, dodging between attacks and striking at weak spots in the Predator's armor. Greg's hammer suit crashed into a Predator head-on, grabbing it and wrestling with the huge machine. Jake became a storm of violence. The Reaper suit moved faster than the Krell could follow. His weapons cut through armor and wires. When a Predator tried to crush him with its huge metal fist, Jake caught the blow. The suit's power matched the Predator's strength. Then Jake tore the arm completely off. Another Predator turned its guns on a group of Jake's pilots. Before it could fire, Sophie jumped on its back and drove her suit's blade into its power core. The Predator exploded, throwing Sophie through the air. She landed hard but got up running. Greg was locked in combat with a Predator twice his size. The massive machine was trying to pull him apart. Greg's hammer suit was built strong, but even it was being damaged. Then 3 more Reaper pilots joined the fight, attacking the Predator from all sides. Together they brought the giant down. The last Predator tried to run. It turned and started moving away from the battle. Jake wasn't going to let it escape. He activated his suit's jump jets and flew after it. The Predator saw him coming and fired all its weapons. Jake dodged left, then right. His suit's computer was predicting where the shots would go, helping him avoid them. He landed on top of the Predator and drove both his fists through its cockpit. The machine stopped moving. The battle lasted 7 minutes. When it was over, all 5 Predators were destroyed. The 50 Krell soldiers were all dead. The humans had lost 5 pilots, good people who had fought bravely, but they had won, and that made all the difference. Jake stood among the wreckage, breathing hard. His suit was damaged, but still working. Around him, his pilots were checking on each other, helping the wounded. We did it, Sophie said, limping over to him. Her phantom suit had a huge dent in the side, but she was alive. We did, Jake agreed. But this is just the beginning. Vector will send more. We need to be ready. Greg joined them, his hammer suit covered in scorch marks. Let them come. We proved we can beat their predators. We can beat anything they throw at us. On his command ship in orbit, Supreme Commander Vector watched the video of his predators being destroyed. His officers stood around him, silent and nervous. For the first time since the invasion began, Vector didn't smile. He stared at the recordings of the human suits tearing his machines apart. He watched Jake Morrison rip the arm off a predator. He saw the speed and skill of the human pilots. For the first time in his long military career, Supreme Commander Vector felt something he had never felt before. He felt doubt. These humans were supposed to be defeated. They were supposed to be broken and scared. Instead, they were becoming more dangerous every day. News about the victory at Salt Lake City spread like fire through the human resistance. For the first time since the invasion, people felt hope again. The Krell could be beaten. The ghosts were real. Humanity still had the power to fight. More volunteers stepped forward. The Reaper program grew quickly. In 3 months, they had 70 working suits. In 6 months, 150. Each new pilot went through the same painful process of connecting with the suits. Each one who survived came out changed and ready to fight. But Jake knew the suits were only part of the answer. To really turn the war around, they needed to think bigger. They needed to take back land. They needed to show the Krell that Earth would never give up. We're going to take back a whole city, Jake announced during a meeting with the military leaders. Not just attack and run away. We're going to take it, keep it, and defend it. Admiral Thrace raised her eyebrow. Which city? Seattle, Jake said, pointing to a map. The Krell have made it into a major supply center. If we take Seattle, we cut off their supplies to the whole northwest area. We force them to respond. They'll attack with everything they have, Colonel Harper warned. Good, Sophie said. Let them come. Every Krell soldier they send to Seattle is one less soldier somewhere else. General Cross looked worried. Even with 150 suits, holding a city against the Krell will be hard. They have support from space, control of the air, and unlimited soldiers. Then we make it fair, Jake said. We've been working on something new. Sophie, show them. Sophie brought up new designs on the screen. We've been studying the Krell technology from the predators we destroyed. Their power systems, their weapons, their armor. We've put it all into a new type of Reaper suit. We're calling it Generation 2. The screen showed better, more advanced suits. They still looked human, but now they had Krell technology mixed in. These new suits have better shields, faster healing systems, and Krell energy weapons, Sophie continued. They also have jump jets so we can fly and fight in the air. We have 20 ready to use. Thrace studied the designs carefully. Finally, she nodded. When do we attack? 3 days, Jake said. We hit them fast and hard. By the time they understand what's happening, Seattle will be ours. The attack began at midnight. 150 Reaper suits came at Seattle from all directions. Storms and electronic jamming hid their approach. The Krell never saw them coming. Jake led the main force straight through the center of the city. The new Generation 2 suits worked perfectly. When Krell fighters flew up to stop them, the jump jets let the Reaper pilots fight in the air. When Krell ground troops tried to defend, the better weapons tore through their positions. Sophie's team attacked the Krell command center with perfect timing. Greg's heavy assault team took over the spaceport, stopping any help from coming down from orbit. And Jake, in the Reaper suit, cut a path straight to the Krell governor's fortress. The fortress had thick walls and many guards, but Jake didn't slow down. He blasted through the outer walls, fought through hallways full of Krell soldiers, and finally reached the governor's room. Governor Zalthar was waiting with his personal guards. He was a veteran Krell commander, old and experienced. You cannot win, Zalthar said calmly. Supreme Commander Vector will send a whole fleet to take back this city. Jake's voice came through the Reaper suit's speakers, cold and mechanical. Let him come. Let them all come. We'll be waiting. The fight was quick and brutal. The governor's guards attacked together, but Jake was faster. His suit's weapons fired with perfect aim. His movements were too quick to follow. When it was over, Zalthar lay on the floor, dead. Seattle belonged to humans again. The news spread across Earth and beyond. Humans had taken back a city. The impossible had happened. Resistance fighters all over the planet celebrated. Hope, which had been dying, began to burn bright again. But Jake knew this was just the start. The Krell would come back with massive force. They had to be ready. He stood on the roof of the fortress, watching the sun come up over Seattle. The city was damaged but still standing. For a moment, Jake let himself feel proud. They had proven that humanity could fight back. Now they had to prove they could hold what they had won. All units set up defenses, he ordered. Make every street a trap. Set up anti-air guns, plant mines everywhere. When the Krell come back, we're going to make them pay for every step. Sophie's voice came through his radio. Jake, we're detecting huge energy readings in orbit. Krell fleet coming. They'll be here in 6 hours. Jake smiled inside his helmet. Good. I was hoping they would hurry. His pilots worked through the morning, turning Seattle into a fortress. Every building became a gun position. Every street was trapped and mined. Anti-air weapons were set up on every rooftop. The Reaper suits stood ready, waiting for the enemy. In orbit above Earth, Supreme Commander Vecthar gathered the biggest fleet he had ever commanded. 50 warships, 10,000 soldiers, dozens of Predator machines. He would crush this human resistance once and for all. But as he looked at the reports from Seattle, at the videos of human suits cutting through his forces, Vecthar felt that doubt again. These humans had surprised him at every step. They were supposed to be defeated. They were supposed to be scared and broken. Instead, they had taken back a whole city. What else were they hiding? Begin the attack, Vecthar ordered. I want that city destroyed. Kill them all. The Krell fleet started moving toward Earth. 50 huge warships filled with soldiers and weapons. They were coming to take back Seattle and kill every human they found there. Jake watched them coming on his suit's sensors. He could see the massive fleet getting closer. Any normal person would be terrified, but Jake just felt calm and ready. All pilots, get ready, he said over the radio. This is what we've been training for. This is where we show the Krell that Earth will never surrender. Sophie checked her weapons one more time. We're with you, Jake, whatever comes. Greg's voice was steady and strong. Let's show these aliens what humans can do when we fight for our home. All across Seattle, 150 Reaper pilots waited. They had come from different places, different backgrounds, but they all shared one thing. They were willing to die to protect Earth. The Krell fleet entered the atmosphere. The sky turned dark with ships. Thousands of soldiers began dropping toward the city, and the battle for Seattle began. The Krell fleet fell on Seattle like a storm. 50 warships, hundreds of transport ships, thousands of soldiers. Supreme Commander Vecthar himself led the attack, determined to destroy the human resistance once and for all. What he found waiting for him was beyond anything he had imagined. The humans had turned Seattle into a death trap. Every building had guns. Every street had mines and traps. Anti-air weapons filled the sky with fire. And everywhere, the Reaper suits waited like silent guards of death. But that was not the worst thing. As the first wave of Krell ships entered the air, they were met by something new. Something that made Vecthar's blood turn cold. Humans were flying. Not in ships or planes, but in Generation 3 Reaper suits with full flight power. 50 suits rose up to meet the Krell, their weapons blazing. They moved with impossible grace, dodging enemy fire and tearing through ships like paper. How are they doing this? Vecthar shouted, watching his invasion force get destroyed before it even reached the ground. His officer looked scared. The suits, Commander. They've made them even better. They're using our own technology against us, but improved. Faster, deadlier. Vecthar's hands became fists. Send all the Predators. Every single one. And get ready to bomb the city from orbit. If we can't take it, we'll destroy it. Jake watched the Krell Predators fall from space, over 100 of the huge war machines. They hit the ground like meteors, shaking everything. Behind them came wave after wave of Krell soldiers. All units, Jake ordered. Hold your ground. Let them come to us. The Krell moved forward with massive force. The Predators led the attack, their weapons destroying buildings and defenses. But for every position they took, they paid with blood. The Reaper pilots fought with fierce determination. Every one of them was willing to die to hold the line. Sophie's phantom suit darted through the chaos, moving like a shadow. She hit the Predators where they were weak, disabling them with perfect strikes. Greg's hammer suit held the center like a wall that the Krell broke themselves against. And Jake was everywhere at once, a storm of destruction. The battle went on for hours. Buildings fell. Streets melted from the heat of weapons. The sky was full of smoke and fire. And still the humans held. Then Vecthar made his final decision. Start the orbital bombing, he ordered. Target the entire city. Level everything. His officer hesitated. Commander, that will kill our own soldiers down there. I don't care, Vecthar said angrily. Destroy them all. Jake saw the Krell warships power up their main weapons. He knew what was coming. They all did. The orbital bombing would wipe Seattle off the map and kill everyone in it. But humanity had one more surprise. Admiral Thrace, Jake said calmly, activate the secret weapon. From hidden places all across Seattle, weapons rose up. Not human weapons, not Krell weapons, something completely different. Before the war, humanity had been working on a secret project, a weapon system based on new physics that most scientists said was impossible. A directed energy weapon that could punch through shields, armor, and air with equal ease. They had called it the Ragnarok Array. The Krell had destroyed the main facility during the invasion. But the humans had hidden pieces all over the planet, and now in Seattle they had built it again. The array fired. 50 beams of pure energy shot into space, each one hitting a Krell warship with perfect aim. Shields did nothing. Armor did nothing. The beams went straight through, turning the mighty warships into clouds of debris. In 3 seconds, Vecthar's fleet was destroyed. The Supreme Commander stared in horror as his ship died around him. Alarms screamed. The hull broke open in many places, and through his window he saw something that would be his last sight. A single Reaper suit, rising from Seattle on wings of fire, flying through the air to reach him. Jake Morrison. The suit landed on the dying ship and tore through its hull like paper. Vecthar grabbed his weapon. His personal guards formed around him, but it didn't matter. The Reaper moved through them like death itself. Energy blasts bounced off its shields. Blades broke against its armor. In seconds, Vecthar stood alone. The suit stopped in front of him. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the faceplate opened, showing Jake Morrison's face. He was smiling. You celebrated, Jake said quietly. You thought you had won. You thought humanity was defeated. Vecthar raised his weapon, but his hand was shaking. Your planet burned. Your fleets were destroyed. We conquered you. Jake's smile grew wider. No, you knocked us down. You thought that was the end. But you forgot something important about humans. What? Vecthar whispered. We're most dangerous when we have nothing left to lose. The last thing Vecthar saw was the Reaper's fist. 3 months later, Jake stood before the rebuilt United Earth Council. Seattle had been taken back. The Krell forces had either given up or run away. Humanity's fleets were being rebuilt stronger than before. We've heard communications from the Krell homeworld, Jake reported. They're calling what happened here the Seattle Massacre. They lost 50 warships, 10,000 soldiers, and their supreme commander in a single day. To them, we're not a defeated species anymore. We're a nightmare. Admiral Thrace nodded. Good, let them fear us. There's more, Sophie added. We've been watching other alien species in this part of space. Word is spreading. The species that once thought humanity was weak are now watching us very carefully. The whole galaxy is talking about us, Greg said with a grin. Looks like we've earned a reputation. Jake looked out the window at Earth, slowly healing from the wounds of war. We didn't ask for this fight. We didn't want to become killers, but they came to our home. They tried to take everything from us. He turned back to the council. Send a message to every species in the galaxy. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity will defend itself. Tell them we won't start fights, but we'll finish them. And tell them, Jake's smile was cold, that the Reaper is always watching. Across the galaxy, species that had once thought about invading Earth quietly changed their plans. The Krell, hurt and defeated, asked for peace, and humanity, bloodied but not broken, stood ready to face whatever came next. The enemy had celebrated their victory, but the Reaper had taken off his mask and smiled, and in that smile was a promise that humanity would never be underestimated again,